Extend Justin Steele right now. Do it.
Do it.
Cubs fans, Setup Nation, this is a call to action to Jed Hoyer and to you listening out there. We need to extend Justin Steele. I don't think there's anyone that is against that as long as it makes sense for both sides. I think if you are against that, you need to check yourself because this guy's been an ace the last couple of years. He and Shota right next to each other this last year. He had less starts than Shota, and he had the exact same F4 as Shota, even though Shota had an incredible 2024 season. But I want to see what kind of movement, what kind of momentum that we can build for our ace. So what I want you to do, it just popped up on your screen. I want you to share this video on any of the social media outlets that you like to use and hashtag ExtendSteele. Let's see what we can get going. I'd also love to know if you like this idea, like the video, no matter if you are liking it or not liking it, make sure that you comment and also subscribe, because what are you waiting for? This is one of the fastest growing Cubs YouTube channels out there. You should be subscribed. You should also hit that notification button so that you know anytime we drop something new. So here's the deal. We're going to talk about the 5 top reasons why Justin Steele should be extended by Jed Hoyer and Carter Hawkins. But let's just look at both sides of this. And honestly, the reasons for the other side, they're weak. But I'm weak. So I'm going to start with the weak reasons that you should not extend Justin Steele. He's only had 30 starts in one season. Well, in reality, in 2021, he was a reliever who had some starts at the end of the year, proved that he should be a starter, and then came into 2022 and was a starter. In that season, he had the most starts, the most innings of his entire professional career. And for that reason, the Cubs at the end of the year, when they weren't getting any sort of traction towards a playoff hunt, realized this was a legit starter and they need to kind of preserve him. So they shut him down. That's why he only had less than 25 starts in 2022. Then in 23, he had 30 starts. He had a low 3 ERA. He was an all-star. He was a stud, somewhere in the mid 4s for an F4. That's an ace. And then in 24, you have, of course, the just devastating hamstring injury to start the season. Never dealt with that again the rest of the year. That's not the type of injury that's going to be recurring. Durability, even though he's only had 1 year of 30 starts, is not in question for me. Number 2, the Cubs still have 3 years of control with Justin Steele. And yes, this is a legitimate argument. Yes, absolutely. When it comes to the arbitration years, there's not a hurry to re-sign a guy, and that's fine. But we're going to talk about the reasons why now is the time in just a second, especially given the fact of where the starting pitching is going. I mean, it feels like starting pitchers are like ordering guacamole at Chipotle. You're like, wait, how much did that cost? So for that reason, like, do we really want to wait until he's a free agent? We'll talk about that in a second. And then lastly, the Cubs, based on my conversation with Jesse Rogers, based on a lot of other articles and theories that we have out there, they're just not as rich as one might think. If you think at all that that is true, then that would mean that the Cubs don't exactly have the luxury of going over the luxury tax threshold for the second year in a row, where the penalty goes from 20% up to 30% based on the current CBA. The Cubs are not the Dodgers. They can't just get a great TV deal overnight. Okay, let's just establish that. That's why the Dodgers can spend a bunch of money. That's what I talked with Jesse Rogers about. By the way, if you missed that conversation, linked it down in the video description below. Number 2, they're also not the Brewers. They have a payroll. They have at least a decent sized payroll. Number 7, I believe, in payroll in 2024. The Brewers way down at the bottom. So if they're right there next to the Braves, for example, and look at what the Braves do. Matt Olson, 8 years, $22 million per year. Ronald Acuna, 8 years at just $100 million. Ozzie Albies, 7 years, $35 million. That's $5 million a year for one of the best second basemen in the entire league. Why is that? Because they invest in what guys are going to do, not what they have done. So that is where we're going to go with this. So the number one thing of why you extend Justin Steele right now is because he's homegrown. 2014, he was drafted out of high school. He comes into the Cubs. He is a guy that because he's been with this team for over a decade and has had the success, it looked like a while back that he was, because of Tommy John surgery, that the Cubs were going to give up on him. Thank God they gave him another chance, or at least he worked his way into another chance. That needs to be rewarded. Got paid $4 million this last year, but the dude deserves to, just from this is completely an emotional attachment here. Homegrown, feel good story, reward that. That's number one. Number two, sends a positive message to the entire organization. And I'm going to give some case studies here, but when you, and I'm not talking about just the players, I'm talking about you, the fan too. If you see Justin Steele extended right now for 5 or 6 years, and he gives the, let's call it home discount that we'll get into in just a little bit here, what kind of message does that send to the organization and to the fans? Go back to 2013, Anthony Rizzo with 7 years, $41 million. I'm not thinking that Justin Steele is going to sign for that low amount, especially because it's a decade later and the inflation numbers and all the contracts are a lot bigger now. But I'm more so telling you, think about what that felt like as a fan. Now, you can argue whether or not Shota's the face, Nico Horner is the face, Kyle Tucker is the face, Justin Steele is the face. All I'm saying is he's at least one of the main guys. And if he gets that kind of contract where you're like, okay, Justin Steele wants to be here, what does that send as a message to you, the fan? All the feel goods, right? Like, hey, this organization is doing something right. If a player is staying here and not going into free agency to try to get the 30, 35 plus mil a year, he's staying here for, call it, 16 to 18, maybe 20 million per year, especially in an inflated free agency market in starting pitching. That gives you confidence that this guy likes being here. And what does that do to other players? Other players see that and say, hey, he must really like doing that, right? They see that and they say, wow, if Justin Steele is doing that, I wonder if they're going to give me that kind of option. And I'm guessing Justin's doing that because he really likes it at Wrigley Field. In fact, you don't even have to guess that. I had Justin Steele on our channel recently, and he said exactly that. Listen in.
So when guys come over from other organizations, that's the first thing I start asking about. I was like, what's said organization do here? Like, so. And something I've gathered is the Cubs do it well. The Cubs do it really well across the board compared to other organizations. I tip my hat to them. It's a great organization, and they do a lot of the things the right way.
Rolling into number 3, he's an emerging leader. He's a personality, and he's the kind of guy that is going to call other guys out for their crap. We saw it in Milwaukee. I love seeing that. As a fan, I absolutely love seeing that. And that's the kind of thing. Who do you want on your team? The leadership quality is just desperately needed right now. And if you agree with that, please let me know in the comments. If you disagree with that, let me know who you think would be a better emerging leader. I'm very interested to hear that. Number 4, just like in real estate, they say location, location, location. Well, in baseball and contracts, I'm saying timing, timing, timing. This is also referenced in Patrick Mooney's article. I'm going to link that in the description about a team-friendly discount for an extension with Steele as well. He talked about it. He landed somewhere in the, I believe it was 6 years, 96 million. What happens right now that it would be so magical when you think to yourself, well, he's in arbitration. He might make between $6 to $8 million this year. Why would we jump the gun and start paying him more? Well, it's, again, investing now so that you can save money in the future. And if it's a win-win on both sides, think about this for a second. Justin Steele made $4 million last year. If he makes $8 million this year, which sounds like it would be kind of the peak, maybe a little bit more, don't you think he would be stoked out of his mind to be told, like, hey, how about we just go ahead and accelerate that to 16 to 18 million per year right now? Now, he might say, well, I'm going to bet on myself. What if Justin Steele says no to that, and then he goes out and he only makes 15 starts this year because he has some sort of major arm injury? Those are the things that are going to be going through a pitcher's mind, a young pitcher's mind who hasn't gotten his payday yet. I believe if you go to Justin Steele right now and say, hey, 16 to 18 million dollars right now, let's do it per year for the next 5 to 6 years. Now, for you, the fan, for me, the worry that I have, right, is, well, what if that does happen? What if he does get hurt? What if some freak accident happens? Guess what? That's part of this game. That's part of being a Major League Baseball owner and baseball operations, head of operations in Jed Hoyer. You have to take some risks. That being said, number 5, starting pitcher free agency market is skyrocketing. It's stupid. It's ridiculous what this is getting to. And it's frustrating the crap out of me as a fan because when you look at, for example, Nathan Eovaldi, who's a great pitcher, getting 3 years, $75 million. Like 25 mil per year 2-3 years ago is your ace. And now a number 2 guy who's on the downslope of his career is getting that. That's crazy to me. The guys that you do compare Justin Steele to that you're like, okay, I could see him in the same league. It's going to be Max Fried and Blake Snell. So first of all, here is Max Fried's contract. And what we're focusing on, 8 years, $218 million, that comes out to $27 million per year. The AAV is the most important part of this. 27 per year. And then you have Blake Snell's contract, which is 31.7. Let's just round that up to 32 million per year. So 27 to 32 million per year. Now, here's a major difference between Blake Snell, Max Fried, and Justin Steele. It's literally just time. It's tenure and time. So going back to, first of all, let's look at Justin Steele. Justin Steele has been in the league for now 4 years, and in 2021 was a reliever with a few starts. Then in 22 to 24 was strictly a starter. So he has 3 years of starts. Meanwhile, Max Fried, a lot more. Okay. When you start looking at it, he became a major league starter in 2019. So he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years of being strictly a starter. 2020 was, of course, the short season. And then 2023, he dealt with injuries, but 6 years as a starter. And he's a legit starter. 4.9 WAR was his highest year. Meanwhile, going back to Steele for a second, Steele's biggest year was 4.8. So there you go. They both peaked out at the same kind of top season. Blake Snell, a lot more experience than both of them. Started back in 2016, became a full-time starter pretty much right away. And ever since then, you know, the lowest amount of starts he's had was this last year. And you can attribute a lot of that to the fact that he started extremely late. His highest WAR year, by the way, does not exceed Justin Steele's 4.7. But he's been a very good strikeout pitcher for many years. And that's the biggest thing here, is that you're going to see a lot more strikeout from Blake Snell. So then the real question is, what does this come down to as a contract? And what I want to share with you right now is a really good excerpt from Twitter. It's actually from someone whose name is Extend Our Ace, Justin Steele. And that's where I just think this was incredibly well broken down. So I want to give this guy some love. The Cubs need to prioritize extending Justin Steele. He said this not even a week ago, December 29th, 2024. Since 2022, Justin Steele, compared to Blake Snell and Max Fried, check this out. Roughly the same amount of starts, actually more. Roughly in the same neighborhood as Snell and Fried in terms of ERA. You got Snell at 2.82, Steele at 3.1, and Max Fried at 2.8. So you're basically a third of a run per 9 innings difference on all three of those. And then the whip is all about the same. 1.16 from Snell, 1.20 from Steele, 1.10 from Fried. The thread continues. Blake Snell is 32, just signed a contract for 5 years, $182 million. As mentioned, roughly about $32 million per year. Max Fried is 30 and just signed a contract for 8 years, $218 million. Justin Steele, the youngest, is currently 29 and will be 32 when he hits free agency. He has already locked in his first arbitration year. Actually not true. I actually DM'd Justin. That is not locked in. So, and I don't blame you here. Extend Our Ace. I do not blame you. If you Google it right now, it literally says that that is his contract. It's not. They have until next Thursday to start making numbers go back and forth. And Max Fried's first arbitration year, he made 6.85. So pretty close. Max Fried then proceeded to make 13.5 in his second year, 15 mil for his third year of arbitration. So he says, let's assume the same for Steele. In 2026, that means that Steele would make 13.5 and in 2027, 15. Given that he will be 32, same as Snell when he hits free agency, we can assume that he will sign a 5-year contract. That means a potential extension likely right now would be for 7 years. Makes sense. Add on the extra 2 years. Snell got 36.4 mil per year. Again, in the tax threshold, it looks like 31 point so-and-so. So basically 32. And doing the math, in 2028 to 2032, that's $182 million for Justin Steele. That extension would be $210 million right now for 5 years. If you add up all three of those numbers, the 13.5 and 26, the 15 million and 27, and the 182 from 28 to 32, you've got $210 million and $500,000. However, Steele is not a two-time Cy Young Award winner. So I believe he would get closer to 25 to 30 million per year versus 36.4 million per year, like Snell is what he says. So based on that, assuming it's 25 million per year for free agent years, 7 years of 153.5, assuming 30 per year would be 178.5. Let's just meet in the middle and say a potential contract extension would be 7 years of $166 million. So this leaves us with the question, should the Cubs give a 7-year, $166 million contract extension? Steele would make 23.7 per year and be locked up for 26 to 32. If I'm the Cubs, I absolutely am getting this extension done. 23.7 for a guy right now with Fried and Snell is a bargain. So yes, absolutely, completely a bargain. But here's what we also know is the fact that the Cubs just got rid of a $25 to $27.5 million contract because they wanted to spread that out in other places. So do I think that the Cubs are realistically going to go to Justin Steele right now and say, we're going to take basically 80 to 85% of what we just got rid of and give it all to you this year? I don't think so. This is my proposal. 5 to 7 years, $100 to $130 million. In that range. So slightly less than what Extend Our Ace on Twitter said. Slightly more than what Patrick Mooney said in The Athletic. At least start the conversation that way. I'm not saying that's the final number. It might be less, it might be more. But here's what I do know. Do not include a no-trade clause. That has killed the outfield. Seiya Suzuki, Ian Happ, with no trade clauses, has done nothing but handcuff the opportunity for the Cubs to be able to be flexible. And that is not, if I know anything about Justin Steele, I don't think that he wants to handcuff an organization. I think he wants to help an organization. So do not include a no trade clause and just load the thing with incentives, right? Or load it with a signing bonus on the front end so it doesn't hurt your luxury tax threshold. I don't know if that's even realistic, but to me, that's where my brain goes to just have a conversation and start this with Steele. Those are my top reasons of why Justin Steele should be extended here before the 2025 season starts. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm going to go put my arm on ice, Setup Nation.